Sunga te tifono le nei turangi. Sunga Mr. Watson. Lau sunga ale whainga ole mafitanga malol Pasifika. Lau sunga te tifono o Samonei sunga ya Brenda. Ela tatu ia le mamali kua akang koto. Well, after that introduction, I wasn't humble and Hindi. Navigating our future together. I was one of the keynote speakers of the 2006 Emerging Pacific Leaders Dialogue Conference in Brisbane. I am honored to be asked to keynote again. The main challenge, it seemed to me, short of rehashing my earlier keynote, is moving the conversation forward. Pacific Indigenous navigation is a powerful metaphor for Pacific leadership. I want to probe it some more and reflect on its relevance to the current global context. As a Samoan, I probe my own culture as reference for my reflections. Samoan navigation culture. I am the patron of the Ainga Folau Samoan Seamen's Guild Association. The purpose, function, and vision of Ainga Folau Samoa is to restore our culture of navigation. Not for its own sake, but in the main to help identify the cultural, moral, and spiritual underpinnings of traditional navigation culture and locate its relevance in the current context. We need, as a nation, to rediscover the great feats of our forebears, particularly when we seem to be overwhelmed by globalization and alien heroes. We need to celebrate the heroic and epic achievements of our own forebears as a reference for our own development moving into the future. The feats of early Pacific navigation were imbued with a psychology of affinity and survival, where the ocean, its fauna and flora, the birds, stars, clouds, moon, and so on, were believed sacred. The spirit of adventure and responsibility that surrounded Pacific navigation placed mana in the water, in trees, in clouds, in birds, and all that the navigators would use to travel the seas. The quest to go out on long voyages was a holy mission, in that the navigators bonded and held sacred conversations with nature and the gods. Samoan historian Dr. Damon Salis found that it took the peoples of Europe until 1336 to discover the Canary Islands, which was only a few hundred miles off the African coast. By that time, Pacific Islanders had found every inhabitable island in the Pacific Ocean, most of which were comparatively small and spread over waters that spanned more than 1/4 of the globe. For some time, people will stand in awe and wonder at the accomplishment. It is something that continues to puzzle and inspire. Scholars and navigators marvel at our traditional Polynesian star charts, our readings of the waves, assessments of bird flight, wave reflections and/or refractions, and they marvel at the accuracy of that knowledge in determining direction and distance. Within the navigation culture, there is a love of the environment, birds, the trees, land, stars, heavens, and of course the ocean. And there is a loving and sacred conversation between these natural elements, the gods and navigator. In Samoan navigational culture, when assessing the tide, you are talking to the tide, hence the word tautai. When assessing the moon, you are talking with the moon, hence the word taumasina. When engaging these assessments, you become in time with the environment, in tune with the environment in a way that ultimately reflects a loving conversation with God. This conversation between man and nature, man and his gods, bespeaks harmony and affinity between them. Man did not have unfettered dominion over nature. The seas, stars, birds, plants, land and heavens were family. In the Samoan indigenous religion, all matter, human, water, animal, plant, and biosphere are issues of Tangaloalan. They are divine creations connected by genealogy. They share the same biological beginnings. In similar order to biblical creation and the Big Bang thesis, the Samoan indigenous reference asserts that while man might be the most evolved and intelligent of all Tangaloalangi's creations, he is nevertheless the younger brother. As such, his relationship to all earlier creations must be one of respect. The respect or fa'aloalo that must be shown by man to all things is a respect for the sacred essence, the sacred origins of their beginnings. This is a cornerstone of Samoan relationships with the environment. When man wants to know how the seasons affect nature, he need only look at the interactions between animal life and the cosmos. In the Samoan context, the palolo, coral worm, rises in October and November. This is determined by the last quarter of the moon. The months of the year are determined by the appearances of the moon. The Samoan word Taumasina literally means time according to the appearances of the moon. The importance of stars to ancient Samoan creation mythology and to Samoan fishing or navigation techniques is recorded by missionary records as playing a significant role. Diligent scrutiny of the heavens every night for guidance about planting, sailing, and fishing was performed for practical survival. Reading stars was performed in such a way that respect both for their service to man and for their genealogical links was obvious. The use and reverence given to Tapuitea, the morning and evening star, is an example in point. The soul or companion of Tapuitea was, as recorded by Reverend Stair, believed by ancient Samoans to be an augury that a chief is about to die. When Samoans point out Wapa'urila, literally the sun has fallen, or Wamasedotor Masina, the moon has died from hemorrhaging, both speak honorifically to the death of a chief. In each of these cosmic occurrences, the indigenous Samoan culture finds that despite men's superior intelligence as earthly species, the mysteries of the cosmic and physical world are beyond them. This reminds man of his place in creation and the need to respect his kin. When natural disasters affect our region, we have to ask ourselves what has happened to this respect. The challenges of navigating 21st century global politics are not that different to the challenges of navigating our oceans. In both cases, we need a sturdy boat, an anchor, sailing skills, and knowledge of the environment. We need to know when and where to anchor, when to set sail, and when not to. We also need positive faith in ourselves, respect for our environment, and enduring hope in survival. In Samoan navigation culture, there is a common saying, meaning there is a time to reflect and a time for action, a time to wait and assess the elements, and a time to set sail. Pacific leaders must have a sense of pride in themselves and their cultural histories in order to be able to survive the turbulences of the modern environment. This means that you must be able to find yourself in your cultural histories and indigenous references before tackling the references of others. Once you have this, you will have an anchor that will help ground you as you search for meaning and place within the broader context of regional and global politics. Navigational global politics. To understand current Pacific politics, Pacific leaders must make themselves aware of underlying forces. Pacific politics do not exist within a vacuum. No island is now outside the reach of the globalization machine. Therefore, it is wise for Pacific leaders to inform themselves of the competing swirls of global, regional, national, cultural, and economic politics. Award-winning journalist Naomi Klein, in her explosive book, The Shock Doctrine, The Rise of Disaster Capitalism, uncovers the way in which our present and future lives can be hijacked by economic and political ideologies that succumb to greed and arrogance. She points out that it took the perversity of Pinochet and the tragedies of Iraq and Afghanistan to bring home the lack or deficiencies of economic ideologies that ultimately preferred market-driven profit-making to collectively defined ethical distributions of wealth. Eminent, what he probably preferred to be known as a Christian theologian rather than a Catholic, Professor Hans Kuhn at the World Parliament of Religion Conference in Melbourne last year launched his manifesto for global economic ethics. The manifesto is an attempt by leading economists, businessmen, and ethicists to take responsibility for finding ways forward out of the quagmire of doom and gloom of Pinochet tragedies and into something positive and potentially empowering, something considered essential if we are to save the planet and ourselves. Kuhn's manifesto re-emphasizes the importance of ethical values and principles. Article 4 of the manifesto cites the biblical rule: what you do not wish done to yourself, do not do unto others. This is referred to in the manifesto as the golden rule of reciprocity, which it states has for thousands of years has acknowledged in all religious and humanist traditions and promotes mutual responsibility, solidarity, fairness, tolerance, and respect for all persons involved. In Samoan, these principles can be found in our notions of alofa, fealoloa, fetausia, feosia, tofa mamau, fautangaloloto, kuamiatonu, fuotalafengai. Words that refer to the imperatives of love, respect, selflessness, mutual responsibility, solidarity, reciprocity, wisdom, justice, and fairness. These indigenous words help to locate and nuance these globalized principles so that they have meaning within our own Samoan context. The complexities of what Klein is talking about and the profundity of the solution that Kuhn is recommending does not undermine or invalidate the legitimacy of the wisdom of our forebears. In fact, if anything, it makes their wisdom even more powerful and compelling. The greatest threat to human life today has to do with the problems that climatic changes impose on us. We who live near the sea or close to the fault lines have and will continue to feel the devastating effects of these changes unless something concrete is done about it. As indigenous peoples, we have on offer a wisdom based on our indigenous references that are worthy of being probed for its relevance to the problem of climatic changes. In formulating our contribution, however, we must not lose ourselves in the brilliance of grand theorizing. As Pacific leaders, we must remain clear on what our core questions are, what our reference points are, and what our measures for assessment are. We would not be remiss to remind ourselves that the brilliance of the Chicago School of Economics has today been found severely wanting. What the world, which includes ourselves, should be looking for are theories that have brilliance in their simplicity and decency. Conclusion. True leadership for our peoples requires having pride and vision, the courage of conviction and a belief in ourselves, in our Pacific heritages, and in the need to protect that heritage. In trying to revive the navigational culture of our Samoan forebears, Ainga Folau Samoa is attempting to practice this leadership. After unraveling the conspiracies of neoliberal politics, Naomi Klein ends her tour de force with a reminder that what ultimately helps us out of a crisis helps us to move out of a crisis is ourselves. I want to read that again. After unraveling the conspiracies of neoliberal politics, Naomi Klein ends her tour de force with the reminder that what ultimately helps us out of a crisis is ourselves, our human will, or what Kung might call ethical will, to survive and to claim what is right, just, and true. It is, as some might say, to be masters of our fates and captains of our souls. My closing words I give to the late Monsignor Ioane Vito, who I will always remember for his never-ending commitment to the belief that the wisdom of our Samoan forebears had just as much truth and relevance to our lives today as the wisdom of Christianity. And just as our modern knowledges can learn from our traditional knowledges, so too, he believed, can our religious knowledges learn from each other. During one of our musing sessions on Samoan indigenous religion and Christianity, Monsignor Vito looked at me and said boldly, "Always remember, Tupua, 1, God is a God of history before he is a God of theology. 2, Christ's language is simple and free. The conversation between God and Samoans predated Christianity." His point was that the wisdom we need to navigate our futures together is right under our noses. We just need to take the time to read it. So